Don't stop.
Hi, thanks so much for joining me on the Everything and Anything in a Bit Gay podcast. My guest today, I am still thinking about him, and I did the interview several weeks ago. He is so fascinating to talk with. There was some bond that I had with him, and I can't even describe, but I'm going to tell you about him in a minute. But first, I want to talk about something that I've been kind of thinking about since Pride Month ended back in June, because I'm kind of reflecting back on Pride Month, and I love Pride Month, and I think it's a great time for us to kind of think about things. And this Pride Month, I think, was even more important than ever because of all the shit that the LGBTQ plus community is going through. You know, the corporate sponsorships pulling out, and flags aren't being, put up. The pride flag isn't being put up in certain states, and there's certain states that were talking about doing Nuclear Family Month instead of Pride Month, or there are straight pride events, for straight people, like all these things. So I have a news podcast, and in early June, I did this news report where I talked about a Gallup poll that came out where they talk about their annual values and belief survey. And this is a really disturbing thing because support for same-sex marriage has dropped yet again for the third year in a row. And that's the headline that kind of hit me, where I'm like, we're going backwards. So let me just give you a little bit of history, because in 1996, 27% of people supported legal same-sex marriage. That was nearly 3 in 4 Americans said our relationships should not be valid, they should not be part of society. And then over the 25 years, it climbed. It was a slow climb, but it was faster once we got marriage equality through, and Obergefell in 2015, which made same-sex marriages legal. So in 2022 and 2023, we were at a 71% peak of people that felt like they agreed with us, we should be married, and it felt like we turned a corner in a lot of ways. It felt like, okay, this is permanent. So now, in this latest Gallup poll, it's 65% of people agree with same-sex marriage, and it's dropping. So the overall drop is almost 100% driven by Republicans, and especially the MAGA Republicans, because in 2021 and 2022, 55% of Republicans supported legal same-sex marriage, and today it is 37%. So that is not just a small drift or a little bit of a change. That is a huge campaign that they have been putting out. And now, only 35% of Americans say gay and lesbian relationships are even morally acceptable. These are numbers that we have not seen since 2005. So Andrew and I have been together, and this September will be 28 years. And we've lived through all of it. We've lived before we could even think about getting married. We lived when only states would allow us to get married, certain states. And then we lived through where we were married and it was legal from a federal level. So we've gone through all these different ups and downs and fighting for it and being part of the LGBTQ plus community. And now I'm watching these numbers kind of tick back and go the other way because we have this orange convicted felon in the White House. It's sad. It's sad to me that people are following his lead. So I have to sit with this and kind of think about this sometimes, because it's not just same-sex marriage, it's the entire thing. Think of all the anti-LGBTQ plus rhetoric that's happening, all the bills that are happening against transgender people. And this isn't just happening in one southern state. It's not just happening in Mississippi or Arkansas or Alabama. This is happening across the country in a lot of different states. Look at Florida. Florida is like, it's funny. My husband, I grew up in Florida, and my husband says, we lived there together for 6 years or so. And he's like, all the shit that happens in Florida, because it's always some crazy shit. It's like all the sludge, all the shit just kind of pours down into that peninsula of Florida. It's just like, it's so true. Like I'm so embarrassed and ashamed to be from there because of all the shit that tiny little Governor Ron DeSantis is doing. Like all the things that he is like you can't have a rainbow crosswalk. What does that hurt you? I don't know. All this stuff just really it just pisses me off that people are so worried about two people loving each other when there's so many other things we could be focusing on and figuring out. There was a war that was started in Iran that's killed thousands of people because we were thinking that they were going to make a nuclear bomb with uranium or plutonium or whatever. And where is that? Then we just said, nope, forget it. And then we have a peace deal. Then we don't. Then we do. Then we don't. I mean, I'm not going to make this too much of a political statement, but we got an Air Force One plane from Qatar in the Middle East. Then we spent $400 million in tax money to vamp this Air Force One plane up. And then the orange convicted felon said he's taking it with him when he leaves office as part of the Trump Presidential Library. So we just gifted him this beautiful private plane that taxpayers are paying for when people can't even afford fucking groceries. People are losing their jobs left and right. People can't afford gas. People are like not able to feed their children. And this is what we're fucking focusing on, is an Air Force One plane. I mean, we're focusing on transgender people who do nothing. It's less than 1% of the population. We're focusing on transgender rights of people. We want to take their rights away. Are you kidding me? These people do nothing but try to live their authentic selves, and you want to hurt them? Why? They're doing nothing. Focus on these white nationalists, these racist KKK white nationalists that are marching in D.C. on the 4th of July weekend. Why are they allowed to walk around? No, because the fucking president is racist. He's a racist piece of shit, and he's like probably loves it that these white nationalists are walking around. But no, he wants to focus on a person wanting to use a bathroom based on the sex that they are. He wants to stop them from using the proper bathroom. That's what it's about. It's so ridiculous. Leave transgender people alone. They are just trying to live their lives. So I'm sorry about the rant and the rave, but whenever I see these Gallup polls and I see this news about what's happening to the LGBTQ plus community and transgender people and same-sex marriage, I mean, it's so fucking ridiculous. Like, I'm just like, I think this often, how did we get here? How the fuck did we get here? Like, we were doing so well as a country. We were the leaders in LGBTQ plus. We were making such promising strides towards being a country that was united. And now it's just like, it's all fucking blown up, and it's crazy. So again, sorry for my rant. Sometimes I need to do this, but let's talk about my guest, because my guest makes me so happy. And that's the reason why I do this podcast, really, is because I want to bring you joy and inspiring stories. And Edward is someone that is so inspiring, and his story and who he is and surviving cancer and living in New York, and just his whole thing is just like, my heart opens so much for Edward. He's so interesting. He's fascinating. The way the conversation flowed, he's great. Like, I would like to have him on as a weekly guest almost, because he was that good. Like, I really, really liked him that much. So I hope you enjoy my interview with Edward. Leave me a message and a DM at The Real Zachary. That's the Zach, Z-A-C-H, and then R-E on Instagram. And tell me what you think about this interview with Edward. And also leave a rating and a comment. And go to Edward's website. I'll put the link to his website in the description of this podcast or video, because he's an amazing guy. And I thank you for listening, and enjoy the interview with Edward. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me on the Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay podcast. I'm Zach Randles-Friedman, the host of this podcast. And today I have a new guest that you have not met before. His name is Edward Miskie, and he has quite an interesting story that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about his documentary. We're going to talk about all things Edward. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So for somebody that's hearing about you for the first time, like how would you describe who you are?
Oh God.
Well, let me start that. Let me say, who were you before you had cancer? Let's talk about that.
Oh, I'm not sure which is better. Okay, so the person I was before cancer, I really kind of wish I talk about this too. I really kind of wish I remembered him a little bit better. He certainly was like a fearless person that didn't really give a shit, and at the same time cared so much.
Okay.
But like was very quick to like throw things away and just be like, whatever, moving on. But at the same time, I cared so much about who I wanted to become and what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to do it. And so it was just a lot of like throwing shit against the wall. But I mean, like, I guess, tale as old as time, beautiful disaster, young gay kid, New York City, no parents, like,
Yeah.
no supervision. Like, let's go.
Yeah. And where did you grow up in New York?
Barely. I am from Pennsylvania originally, but I basically graduated high school and 3 days later I moved here by myself with like no job, no money, no plan, no friends, and just kind of made it work. And so I think that is kind of like the thesis of who I have become as an adult is like there is no such thing as no, and I will just make it work.
And why did you leave like at 18 just to move to New York? Because did your family not accept who you were? Did you hate where you lived? Like, what was the reason? Or you just wanted to be in New York?
My family was great. I mean, in hindsight, they were great. I was the problem, and I needed to go. And because I was the problem and didn't want to accept that, I placed blame on, like, they were stifling me. And, like, that's such teen angst shit. But, like, I always wanted to come to New York. I was a theater kid growing up. I was really into like pop music and stuff. And I was writing pop rock stuff back then too. And like, I moved here with big dreams and big ambitions and no clue how to do it. And I just was like, if I stay in Pennsylvania, I will die one way or another, whether it's my own doing or I'll be drunk and driving somewhere and get hit by a car or whatever. Because by that point, I had already had a bunch of friends who had done all of those things. And so it was just very much like, if I don't get out of here, that's going to be me. And so I ran away here and made a life for myself.
And so you, did you get into acting or did you become a performer or a writer once you got to New York at 18?
Yeah, like, yes, I did. I was very lucky. I had about a 17, 18 year career as an actor, like mostly full time with some breaks in between working. But I very much consider myself to be one of the lucky ones that worked a lot and all the time. It didn't start out that way because, again, I was a little baby and I didn't know how to do anything. And this was pre-social media and the internet was not what it is now. So it was a couple of years of like working jobs I didn't like, that I didn't belong in, that were helpful and necessary at the time, but really kind of gave me, I guess, a foundation for me to flail about and figure it out, otherwise. But it was a rough first couple years until I really started to get into acting full time. And then once it hit, it just hit, and I kept going.
What year did you move to New York?
2005.
2005. Okay. Yeah, I moved in 98, but I had a job. I had no apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a U-Haul full of stuff that I took from my parents' house with me. My friend drove up from Miami, and I'm like, if we don't get an apartment in the next day, we're staying in a hostel over the weekend. And then I had to put my stuff in storage in New Jersey. She's like, I'm not staying in a hostel. We're finding a place. So, I mean, we found.
Back then, I didn't even know what a hostel was.
I didn't know really what it was either. So, but she says we're not staying in one because there was no internet back then either, because it was 1998. So, or was there internet? I guess there kind of was a little bit,
but not like you would have needed it.
Yeah, it wasn't like on my phone. It wasn't on my, like I couldn't get it on my phone. We
had your Nokia slept.
Back then. Exactly. And so, I remember us standing, we were on the Upper East Side. We looked at an apartment. I'm like, I don't know about it. She goes, listen, you're taking the fucking apartment. So like call the guy and tell him you're coming to sign right now. And we want the apartment today, the keys. I'm like, oh, okay. Cause she's like, I'm not sleeping in a hostel. So,
no. Well, back then you could do that. Now it's like, there's so much more to it than there was back then.
Yeah. But so tell me 2011, like you're going, you're in the trajectory, your kind of life is together. What were you in the middle of when you were diagnosed with cancer?
I mean, I don't know if I would say my life was together, but it was doing something.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, at that point, I was working pretty full time as an actor, and I was in the middle of doing a production of Hairspray in Reno, Nevada, at a casino. And I had this lump under my arm that just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And before I knew it, it was like the size of a grapefruit. And it was like I was having costumes taken out because it was so big I couldn't fit into my costumes. I remember I had to have the back of my jacket taken out twice. And that was jarring. And so once that contract was over and I came home, I saw my doctor, we got it biopsied, and, boom, I have cancer, and I'm in chemotherapy like a week later. I think I came home right after Thanksgiving, and I was in chemo the first week of December.
And did you do your treatments in Pennsylvania, New York, or Reno?
Reno, I would have I'd be dead. I did it in New York. I started at one hospital, which kind of soured over time, and then we left for a second opinion, and I ended up at Sloan Kettering.
Okay. At least you had good care.
Yeah. Well,
because
mostly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the reason why I say that is because when my father was diagnosed with cancer, he was in Miami, which he had good care. Then he went to Southern Illinois he moved there which is where family was, and the care wasn't great. So it's just like, if you're in a small town like that, like you said, Reno, you probably would not be here right now because Reno probably doesn't have the best medical care.
Yeah. Well, I mean, unfortunately, like not all hospitals are created equal. And, there was a conversation with my family at the time to move back to Pennsylvania and get treated there at Hershey Med, which is like the closest, biggest hospital to my family. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, I live in like Hospital City. Like, this is, we're not going anywhere.
And we'll be right back. Okay, now back to the show. So what was your thought, like, whenever, when you learned that you had cancer and you knew that you had to go through treatment, like, what was your initial thought? Were you like, and I asked this is because my aunt had cancer, survived. My father did not, but he did survive the first 5 years. And I have thought this in my own head about, if I ever get cancer, like, what do I do? Like, how far would I go? Because it's miserable, right? And one of the things that you've said is surviving cancer seriously sucks. And I don't think a lot of people say that. A lot of people say, I survived cancer, thank God. Why do you say, as a survivor, that it sucks?
Well, it's both. And it's funny you should ask the first half of that question, because I was literally, while I was getting dressed for work this morning, I was thinking about that. Like, what was my headspace when I first was diagnosed? Like, and I think the first thing was, oh shit. And then it was like, oh, how long is this going to take? I don't have time for this. Like, I have other things that are going on. I had other work, like acting work, lined up. And in the beginning of chemo, it really was terrible. I was getting calls from people to like come and do stuff. Like, I got called for a short film. I got called for an entire summer season at a regional theater, and I had to turn all of it down. It was terrible. And it really was just this like inside scream of like, leave me alone and don't make me have to say no to more stuff. I even asked my oncologist if I'd be able to go down to Florida to do a production of My Fair Lady, because I got asked to do that. And she was like, no. And literally said, like, you have to put that part of your life behind you right now. And that was horrible. But it really was just kind of, it fed into that whole like, oh, how long is this going to take? It just felt like such an imposition. And like, I mean, obviously, like, treatment was rough. It was terrible. And we found good places, good like shining moments in it that were enjoyable, that we could kind of like look back and laugh at. But while it was happening, it was just like, oh my God, can I get hired for something? I want to go work. What, like, this being this hospital is such a waste of my time. The irony of like trying to get yourself to live so you can have more time. And I'm just like, ugh, angsty 20 something year old. But I think how that ties into the sentiment of surviving cancer sucks is not that it sucks that I'm alive. I don't mean that in like an I want to not be here kind of way. I mean it in the sense that the whole time that you are in treatment, all you want to do is go back to what you were doing before it all started.
Yes.
And all you want to do is feel normal again and feel like yourself again and go back to like the life you had. And then that is just the assumption. I think it's fair that you, having had experienced cancer through family members and like me having gone through it, I think it's fair to say that the assumption is when you are told you're cancer free, that it's like, oh, great, I can go back to the life I had before and just be who I was. It might take a little bit for me to get there, but that's where we're going. And what sucks, and why I say surviving cancer sucks, is that realization, that moment of realizing that like, that's not going to happen. You're never going to be that person again. You know too much. The life that you had before is never going to be the same. I'll often talk about it as being like a wrinkle in time, where you hope that like the old you and the new you just kind of like meet up in the middle somewhere. And that also doesn't happen. And you just kind of have to realize that you need to start over. And depending on how old you are, what your age is, where you are in your career or your life, the level of suck kind of goes up and down. You know, being in my mid-20s, being the very attractive 24-year-old at the time, and having a lot going for me, and feeling like I was getting some kind of career momentum, having to put all of that on pause to go have fucking cancer, like, please. And so like you come out on the other end of it and you're like, oh, I don't know who I am anymore, and I need to figure this out. And that took a long time.
And was there a moment where you're like, there's a possibility, like, did you ever have the realization there's a possibility you weren't going to survive this?
Oh, many times. Mostly because of complications that I brought upon myself. I was kind of raging against being in the hospital at all. And so I'd like drink my way through chemo, or I'd like go hook up with like indiscriminate people, and just some things you shouldn't do when you don't have an immune system at all. The real kicker, the one where I remember laying in the hospital bed, talking to my friend Jordan, and just being like, I think this might be it. Like, this is the end. I went to Florida to visit my little sister, and I went and swam in the ocean in the middle of radiation, and I got a parasite. And
oh my God.
I'm very cagey about going to the ocean these days, even though like obviously I'm in much better health and a much better place now. And that wouldn't necessarily be a conversation, but it was very jarring. I lost like 15 pounds in a week, and I was quarantined in a hospital, and it was really bad. And so there were definitely moments where it was like, I don't know if I'm going to get out of here.
Yeah. And were you like, did you come to terms with that though? Because I think that's, I think whenever I was talking with my aunt about her cancer, there was moments where she maybe came to the conclusion that maybe this wasn't going to work. Or she was like, what if this treatment doesn't work? And where she came to terms with it, and she was okay with it in a certain way. Did you ever become okay with it? You're like, if this happens and I don't live through this, I'm okay with it?
No, I was never going to be okay with it. I was, and okay. I had the conversation with my oncologist a couple of times about treatment not working. None of my chemotherapy worked. None of it. We were supposed to do, I think, 8 rounds. We got through 4 until we were like, this isn't working. Let's do something else. So I switched to radiation, and that like kind of worked, but they still wanted me to do a ton of other stuff. And so having the conversation of like, maybe this won't work happened. Like, this isn't working. This is not working for you. Like, LOL.
So what did you do? Did they put you in a clinical trial?
I was on so many clinical trials. I've lost count. I don't even know how many. Between the first hospital I was at in Sloan Kettering, I feel like every other day I was like, having blood drawn for clinical trials. Like, who knows? But I really wish I knew more about that actually, but I wasn't paying attention to it a whole lot.
Yeah.
But when I switched hospitals, care and all of that kind of, improved and got moving along a little bit better. But it never settled with me. I never had the feeling like, this is it. I will fight this. Like, I will win. There's no second option here. And I never felt throughout the entirety of treatment that was the end. It always just felt like an imposition.
Yeah.
Like, will you get out of my way, please?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a unique perspective though, because I think a lot of people, from what I understand, and I've done a podcast. I did a podcast with a company that I used to work for that was focused on oncology, and I spoke with patients and caregivers, and I've done a lot of patient videos and stuff where I've talked to people where, you know, we've talked about their entire journey, and they have, I don't think anybody's ever said, I'm beating this no matter what. Like, this is just like, and it sounds like that's how you felt, which is very positive and great.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the thing is, like, in the moment, it didn't feel positive. In the moment, it didn't feel, like, heroic, and it didn't feel good. It was just kind of like, again, like, this is something that is a roadblock in this life I've wanted to build for myself, and up until that point had built for myself. Get the fuck out of my way. And it never felt good. I never felt empowered by that. It was always just like, because you don't feel good. You don't look good. You're depleted. You're in bed all the time. Like, you can't really eat much. Like, there's so many things that are holding you back. And I think tying back to why I moved to New York in the first place, it was that same feeling of like being stuck somewhere you didn't belong and being held back and wanting to get out of there as soon as possible. There was an appointment I had that was an outpatient chemo. Most of my chemo was inpatient, like multiple days on end, like 7, 8, 9, 10 plus days in the hospital. But there was one that I had that was, I think it was supposed to be a 7-hour drip. They told me 3. And so I got there and they were like, oh, just 5 more hours to go. And I was like, I'm sorry, no. And I asked them if they could up the speed of the chemo so I could get out of there faster. And they did it. They definitely should not have done that, but they put it at the highest level it would go, and that shit just like coursed right through me, and I went to the bar and met friends. It was not... So,
were you in a relationship at the time?
In the beginning of it, I was dating this guy that I had met on the road doing shows, and about, I think, 3 chemos in, when we were having the stem cell transplant conversation, I found out, because he's a dum-dum, that he was seeing someone else because they posted about it on Facebook.
Okay. So he was cheating on you while you had cancer.
Yeah. I mean, in so many words, we were technically open, but it just wasn't, like, whether we were open or not, it kind of didn't matter. My circumstances were what they were. And, not to give him too much credit, but statistically, men leave in that situation. It's something like 80% of men who are in a relationship with someone who's been diagnosed with a chronic illness or terminal illness, they leave. And
straight and gay, or just gay men?
I'm pretty sure that's just men across the board. I would be interested to see what the gay statistics, the LGBTQIA statistics of that are. But I did look it up at one time, and I was very kind of flabbergasted by how
I think that's shock. I mean, I've been in a relationship with my husband for 27 and a half years, and obviously if he got sick, I would not leave him.
Right. Well, you get to be part of the 15%.
20%.
Yeah. 20,
all right.
20%.
Yeah. I mean, after he left, I mean, how were you? I mean, you need a support system when you were going through cancer treatment. Did you feel kind of lonely? Did you have did you kind of have a fear? Like, how did you kind of handle all that? I mean, there's lots of emotions I'm sure you had. Like, how were you feeling?
I mean, rage at first, but I think in hindsight now, like, that's an impossible thing to ask someone, especially if you don't have like legal ties. Like, I wasn't married to this guy. We weren't together for that long. And so, like, asking and expecting them to be, tried and true through the worst possible time is a big ask. Would I like to think that a person would be a good enough person to either exit in an appropriate kind of way for the circumstances or stick around? And then what is worse, sticking around for it to like all be over and then break up with them, or just like rip the Band-Aid off? I don't think there's a right answer. And so, like, I don't know how I would react in that situation. I would like to say that I would stay, but one doesn't know. And like that whole thing is just such an interesting dynamic. And I think had I not had such a good support system with family and other friends, that would have been a bigger deal. It still felt terrible, but I had people I could speak to and talk to about it, and kind of like allow that human experience to ruminate with the people that were in my support system in and outside of a hospital room.
And we'll be right back. Okay, and now back to the show. So you talk about kind of, and you do talk about kind of like body changes and things that were changing in your life. What was one of the things that kind of hit you the hardest, that kind of maybe blindsided you a bit?
I mean, this is so cliche, but losing my hair, it was terrible. Again, like, I look back at pictures of me when I was 25, and I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
You really thought you were an ogre, and you had everything going for you. And, like, my hair's always been a thing. I used to get teased in high school by my dad about losing my hair. And I always, like, held on to it as, like, I haven't lost it yet. I'll beat you.
Yeah.
And then when that was happening, it was just kind of like this very, very heartbreaking moment, because it felt very permanent. And I had friends come over once it started to fall out. I had a very close circle of friends come over. I didn't really tell a whole lot of people that I had cancer. I told the people that needed to know, and that was it. Didn't post about it online until it was over. But I had those friends come over. They cut my hair. We shaved my head down pretty far. We didn't like razor it, but we went as far down as I would allow. And the first time looking in the mirror after that happened was really, really the moment that I was like, oh, okay, I think I understand what my life has become now.
Did it grow back different when it grew back? Because like my dad had. Did it grow back more full or just?
Well, it grew back fuller, darker, thicker.
Darker, yes.
Yeah. And then also I had like these little curls. I'm like, I had like this part was like wavy and this part was like ringlets. And I loved it. And like one haircut in and it was gone. I was so mad because I was like, this is brilliant. How they keep it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that same thing happened to my father where his hair was gray and when it grew back, it was like dark.
They told me that could happen.
Yeah. So it's kind of crazy, but
well, and they told me the opposite because mine came back in really dark. Like I have one photo of me that I took maybe like 6 months afterwards, and I look like Middle Eastern of some kind because my beard is just so dark and my hair is so dark and textured, and it's like gorgeous. And I just, oh God, but they told me that there was a possibility it could come back white as well. And I was like, Anderson Cooper. But sadly that.
I mean, there was a time where people wanted white silver hair, so there were people dyeing their hair.
I still do.
I'm fighting that as much as I can with hair dye, so I don't want that yet. So let's talk about like what happens after. So how long did you go through treatment?
Treatment front to back was about 10 months. From the time I first started treatment until the time I was told I was cancer free was 10 months.
And then you made it to the 5-year mark. No cancer.
No cancer.
And now, so it's been how long now? 15 years? Am I right? Or
coming up on 14.
14. So did you feel a sense of relief after 5 years?
What's really funny? I think that there is a whole slew, I know that there are a whole slew of things that they don't tell cancer patients. And one of those things is that at the 5-year mark, you don't see your oncologist anymore. Like that's the end of you seeing your oncologist. And I didn't know that going into my 5-year appointment. I knew it was my 5-year appointment. They had mentioned it. And I just was like, oh, that's my 5-year check-in, like blah, blah, blah. And we did all of the scans and the checks and everything else we needed to check. And at the end of the appointment, my oncologist, basically, she like squared off at me and was like, so you've had 5 years. This is amazing. Beat all odds. And then she told me, you're the only person to have this type of cancer to live this long or have and not have a reoccurrence. And then she gave me a little pen that was like a little Angel 5-year pin I have parameters on. Mm-hmm. And then she was like, and I won't see you again. This is your last appointment with me. And all the other information just kind of was like when she told me I was the only person that's lived this long, I was like, I really wish you wouldn't have told me that part because that's terrifying. But like, this is your last appointment with me. I just sat there and cried. And like, I felt so stupid for crying. And like, I was like, this is a good thing. Why are you crying? But she'd become such an integral necessary part of my life for the last 5-6 years that it was just weird to have her, like, in a sense, break up with me. You know, it was like, it was that boyfriend leaving me thing again, all over again. You know, and at that point I had another boyfriend who had also broken up with me in a very similar manner. And so it was just like, this again.
I mean, you had a bond with her, right? Because she saved your, she saved your life.
Well, and she also was like 5'1" and like dressed to death every single day. And I loved her and was also terrified of her because every time I saw her, for the most part, especially during treatment, it was bad news. And so anytime she walked in the room in her like mini skirts and her like arm bracelet things and whatever, I was like, oh, not you again. But I was obsessed with her. She was great.
So let's talk about the phrase "back to normal." So that's the title of your film, and it's clearly something that's loaded for you. So why is "back to normal" kind of a lie? Tell my audience that.
Because there is no back to normal. Normal's gone. I think I chose the title "Back to Normal" because it was a theme that a lot of the people that we had spoken to in the documentary had brought up. Like, oh, I just thought I'd go back to normal. Oh, I really miss the way that my life used to be. I wish I felt normal. And that was the sentiment that I had echoed to others and myself for years. You know, I just want to feel normal again. And it never happens. And we called it "Back to Normal" because there is no getting back to normal. And that is the thing, the through line and theme that any cancer survivor I ever have spoken to echoes over and over and over again. There is no going back to normal. And you just kind of have to like Apple reset and start over.
Give me an example of what you mean by that. Because I think a lot of people think, okay, I'm done with treatment. I can go back to my job. I can go back to doing my hobbies. I can go back to having dinner. What do you mean when there's no back to normal?
Time has moved on without you. Life has moved on without you. You have been stuck in this vacuum of treatment and just survival of trying to like get through it and come out on the other side. Everyone else is fine. Everyone else is like moving on without you. They'll check in with you, they'll text you, they'll call you, they'll come visit you in the hospital, but their lives otherwise have not changed. And so I think the biggest displacement is like, yes, you come back to your apartment, yes, you go back to your job, yes, you go back to your friends and your family, but while you're in it, you're like, who the fuck are these people? I don't know them anymore. And it's not because they've necessarily changed. They've changed in the sense that people naturally change and progress as life goes on. But like you're kind of stunted back where you were because again you're trying to like go back to the person before, and like you try really hard to be that person and to fit back into that body and that brain space and whatever. But you know the jarring part of it is that it doesn't necessarily get better. You always just kind of feel like a stranger in your own life around things that look familiar to you that don't necessarily feel right, you know?
Was there anybody that really disappointed you?
Let me count the ways.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think I disappointed me in a lot of ways. And
what do you mean? Tell me what that means. Like, why? How did you disappoint yourself?
Because I feel like, and I mean, there's no way that I really could have known this at the time, and it's why I'm very vocal about this now. I wish that I would have been like smart enough to come to the realization earlier that like there wasn't that like going back to that wasn't going to happen, and like that you just need to like move on and like figure out what your life is going to be now moving forward, and you have to make those decisions and you have to swing big and just like go with it. But it took me like, I don't know, maybe like 8 to 10 years to get to that point. And I really wish that I would have realized it sooner because I was so lost in the sauce of my own bullshit that like once I hit the point of realize it was actually partly because of COVID and shutdown where I was like, and I had met people along the way that kind of like little by little tuned me into this a little bit here and there, but it never really fully hit. And so like in that way, I disappointed myself. I think any kind of disappointment I felt in other people was not their fault. And I think it was a lot of me having an expectation for them that I never should have had in the first place because I did not have the understanding that life had moved on without me. And I thought I could just plug myself right back in. And so any disappointment that I have towards other people is just kind of like, whatever. Now, there are people that like when you tell them you had cancer, because again, I didn't really tell anybody. When you tell them that, they'll say some fucked up, dumb shit.
Like what?
Like, I don't actually know if he's doing this anymore, but there used to be an acting teacher, an acting coach in New York City that I was sort of friends with. We were friendly. You know, I didn't really study with him, but he lived in my neighborhood and I would see him around and whatnot. And I saw him on the one train downtown one day. And I was like, yeah, I had cancer and it's gone now and I'm fine or whatever. And he goes, oh no, how are you going to get men to sleep with you now? And I was like, pardon?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't take your penis off. So
no. I mean, the insinuation is that I was using that as leverage or to get like sympathy laid. And it was just like, this dried up old queen, like, yeah. Like but it was like, it's like dumb stuff like that.
Yeah. But tell me about like sex and relationships after cancer. Like, how was that?
I mean, sex and relationships during cancer.
So you were doing it during cancer too? Okay.
Yeah. Because again, I was raging. I was like, this will not change my life.
Okay.
And so, but like after
even when you felt bad after chemo and radiation, like, were you in the mood to even talk with anybody? I feel like.
Yeah, because I wanted to feel pretty again. I wanted to feel wanted. I wanted to feel desired, and like people wanted to spend time with me. And it wasn't even necessarily in a sexual way. That's how it manifested itself. But like, I just, you know, like I did have a support system, but not like that. And it just wasn't good.
Yeah.
But after the fact, I mean, that's again, it's like the training wheels are back on. You're like, I don't know how I feel about my body. I don't know how I feel about what I want. I don't know how I feel about this. And like, I just kind of defaulted to what I knew and what I had wanted before. But again, in hindsight, it was like, maybe not that. Maybe change it up a little.
Was there a moment, maybe like in survivorship, I guess was what I'll call it, where that felt harder than when you were kind of going through treatment itself? Like,
oh my God, yeah.
So tell me about that, because I think a lot of people don't really realize, like, they think, oh, again, after the fact could be the worst part. Because so tell me like how you were feeling about that, just about being that survivor. And I understand like you had to like readjust to a world that you weren't a part of anymore. But, you know, I think for me, I would like maybe constantly think about, is this coming back? And like, I know you have to escape that you have to get that out of your mind or else you'll go insane. But like, how did you kind of get through all this surviving, getting back into the world, readjusting back into normal life again?
Well, I really want to touch on the it's coming back component, but I'm gonna lead up to it because it's all part it's all part of the same conversation. So when you're cancer free, my experience and many other experiences, I'm sure there are exceptions, comment section, where your medical support system, the people who are kind of like pushing you from appointment to appointment and doing your lab work and getting your tests done, telling you you're okay, or you need to do this, or you need to do that, disappears in overnight. You know, you're told you're cancer free and then they're like, great, see you in 6 months. And you're seeing them weekly for the most part. In my case, I was seeing them 3 times a week, and then it was 2 times a week, and it was once a week, and then it was every 6 months. And at that point, it was like, what? So you have this support system that you rely on so frequently, and which is different than like family, friends, etc. Like it's a different kind of support system. They just pull the rug out from under you, and then they're like, go back to your life, go figure it out. Congrats. You know, maybe you get to ring a bell. I didn't. Salty about it.
You did ring it?
No, I didn't even know there was one.
Okay.
Part of me feels like, is this new? Is this something that they just started doing recently? Like, part of me wants to march my ass back to Sloan Kettering and ask him if I could ring the goddamn bell. Just do
exactly. You should.
I should. You know what? Let me email their PR team and see if they can do that.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, so that all goes away and disappears. And so you're already kind of fish out of water. And then you also have the fact that everyone's lives have moved on without you. And then you also have the component of like, you tell people that you're cancer free and they're like, oh, you're okay now. You don't need me. And so then everyone kind of scatters. And it's not that you're not friends with them anymore. It's just that they don't think you need them in the same way. And maybe you don't. But like it becomes very much like a black hole of like just you alone with your thoughts. And then you're just sitting in your apartment or your house or whatever your respective place of living. And you're just like, where'd everybody go? And then comes cancer panic, which is what I have dubbed the feeling of, oh my God, it's coming back. And that in the very beginning is manic episode, calling my mom, yelling into the phone about how I have this cut on my leg and it's not healing. And I'm more susceptible to getting leukemia now because I have lymphoma and it's obviously leukemia. And I need to get ahead of it because this cut on my leg is not healing fast enough, or like this bruise on my arm it's not healing fast enough. So obviously I have cancer again. And obviously I need to go back to the hotel, the hospital to get checked because I'm dying. And that is with literally everything. It's not just cuts and bruises. Like I have a sore throat, esophageal cancer. Oh my God, my poop is weird. I have colon cancer. Oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, this just happened to me recently. I strained my groin working out too hard. Obviously, this is testicular cancer. I have to go to the emergency room. Like, this is multiple times a day. It is crippling anxiety. It is absolutely terrible. I did go to therapy for it. That sort of helped. But I don't know if it's really something that a random therapist is equipped to handle. It needs to be a specific person who knows how to talk to you about this kind of thing. It's really bad. And I've talked to the cancer survivors in comment sections and DMs on social media about all of this stuff. And the one recently just was like, I was talking about the cancer panic component and they were like, oh no, it doesn't go away. And it's like, no, it doesn't. It gets better. You get better at managing your headspace. You get better at kind of like approaching the conversation with yourself. But that feeling doesn't go away. Again, I'm almost 14 years out and I just went to the emergency room in like March because I thought that I had like given myself testicular cancer somehow. And so I got scanned and ultrasound and examined and blood work and everything. I'm fine. But like 13 years out and I was not good for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And even more recently, I went to a dermatologist for the first time because, like, I'm almost 40. There are moles. I was not kind to my skin in my 20s. I'm the generation of, like, let's wear olive oil outside and tan.
Same.
Yeah.
Me too.
I mean, hello. So I had one mole removed on my right side, right under my chest. And they were like, well, it's a little discolored and abnormal, so we're going to send it out to get it checked and we'll call you in 2 weeks. And I was like, 2 weeks? So now this is twice this year, over 13 years cancer free, where I'm like losing my shit on the regular because, well, you know, I have skin cancer. And is anyone surprised because I used olive oil instead of sunscreen?
Yeah. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Okay, now back to the show. You know, there's a lot of talk about how, you know, you've talked about this where, you know, LGBTQ plus people are more resilient because they've had to like take on, you know, a world that doesn't always accept them in every way. Do you think being part of the LGBTQ plus community kind of gave you a little bit of a head start for being prepared to survive cancer or to be in that battle?
I mean, first of all, I love this question. I think queer people, I'm going to use that as an umbrella categorization. Although I've been yelled at about that recently, but whatever. Different kinds.
I think you can say queer again.
It's not to get
a lot of my guests say queer.
Totally. Not to get too in the weeds, but the conversation was by categorizing everyone under the term queer, you are erasing the individuality of each group, which I'm like, Okay.
Okay, you can be politically incorrect on my show.
Right.
It's fine,
We're here, we're queer. Wasn't that the 60s? Like, get it together.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we can just call ourselves, we can be fruity or whatever you want to call us on
the fairies,
show,
whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, again, not to go on a tangent, but like, this was an elder gay, which we love and have respect for, but like, you fought for change and things have changed. So why are you mad that things changed?
Yeah, exactly. Gotcha.
Anyway, don't need to get into that. But I think queer people are born with magic, not just because it is an internal thing that is within you, but it literally is just like you learn how to maneuver through life in a way that is different than straight people do. And that is because the world that we are living in was not made for us. And so we have to adapt. We have to pivot. We have to fight back. We have to conceal. We have to mask. We have to be exhilarating and be entertaining and be all these things that are just, that change day to day to just get by. And so I think having gone from middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, where being gay, I didn't know a single gay person growing up until I was like 17. And even then it was one other person. And since then there have been others, but not until they didn't come out until way later. But like going from that to living in New York City to like that, like culture shock is insane. But when you're from that kind of environment, which most queer people are, I would venture to say, you just have to like learn how to adapt and learn how to survive. And there are some of us that kind of like mask in order to survive. And there are some that rage against whatever is oppressing them to survive. I wish I was a little bit more of that. I find myself to be somewhere in the middle a lot of the times. But specifically for cancer, it was very in the middle, where I had to be calculated of how I maneuvered in order to live, but then also like desperately hold on to the person that I was or wanted to be, or whatever you want to call it. And so it was like this tug of war of like, you have to live, and also fuck this, it's in my way of living. And so, you know, but I think queer people have a very unique experience in doing that anyway, that something like this that comes into the road of life is just a larger obstacle to overcome. But that's what we do. We overcome.
Yeah, one of the things, so with gay audacity, I'm going to repeat it. With gay audacity, you can do anything, even slay cancer. So unpack that for me a little bit.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, the colloquialism of gay audacity within the pop culture zeitgeist is kind of an inference that growing up gay, like your gay audacity means that like you can go build a car, like because what, like it's hard, or like you can go, you know, conquer some industry because like, what do you mean I can't do it? You know, and I think that's very much carried into a lot of what queer people do, especially queer people who have had to escape places that they grew up in order to survive. All we do as queer people is survive. You know, like that's all we do. It's the number one thing that we know how to do. If I had one skill, it's how to survive.
Yep, I agree. And especially in today's world.
Yeah.
With all the shit happening in today's world and in this country. I mean, not to get political, but there's all this shit happening. We're all surviving still, or trying to.
But it is political. It is political. And I'm sorry, but cancer is political too. You know, I volunteer with American Cancer Society and Blood Cancer United on their advocacy programs, and they're all working on legislation that is going through Congress and going through whatever to help cancer patients and to improve the healthcare shit system that we have now. It like your health, whether you're queer or not, is political. It's designed that way. It's integrated into our political system. And, you know, so not to get political, I mean, everything is, especially if you're a queer person, everything is political. And so, you know, I mean, whether or not the current circumstances being what they are, want all of us dead in the first place. They're the two things that we as queer people that I think we have all kind of categorized as audacity is how to fight back, and how to survive. And I think that to me is what gay audacity is. And that is like on different levels, you know, like going and conquering an industry is just surviving and fighting back.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of us had to learn how to survive like early in life, right? So, I mean, there were things that we weren't supposed to talk about growing up, whether you knew you were gay or not. I denied it to myself for everybody knew I was gay but me. Well, most everybody. My mom says my mom finally asked me, and I was in my early 20s. She still says to this day she didn't know. I'm like, how could you fucking not know I was gay? Like, but she didn't. So,
I mean, people thought George Michael was straight. Get it together.
I know.
And Elton
People
John.
thought,
Are you serious?
and Elton John. Yes, I know.
And Liberace.
Liberace.
What are we doing? Do we not have eyes?
I know. But what was kind of the thing that, made you, was there something as you were growing up and learning to kind of protect yourself from things and protect yourself from, whatever being gay means? Maybe in your town, it was more, you said there was nobody really gay. So did people ever suspect you were gay when you were growing up? And if so, did any of that kind of help you kind of have a protection device for yourself whenever you learned you had cancer to kind of help you with that?
Well, I mean,
help you survive in a way.
Yeah. I mean, cancer withstanding, I think all queer people have that, whether they grew up in a place where the word gay was known or accepted or not. Mm-hmm. The town I grew up in was like 2,000 people and surrounded by farms. Like the house I grew up in was like farms on three sides of two sides of the house. But it was a very, very small town. And I started in public school down the street. And from the time I was in like kindergarten, like I was called every slur you can imagine that was associated with queer people. And I was a child, and I had the shit kicked out of me on the bus. I had the shit kicked out of me in second grade. And my parents finally at that point were like, we're moving schools. And so I ended up in a smaller private school about 30 minutes away. And we ended up moving closer to there when I was getting older. And it got better-ish there. Like I was never physically assaulted there, but I certainly was verbally assaulted. By students and teachers alike. So
really?
Yes. I was outed by my religion teacher in 10th grade. She told the whole class on my behalf because I confided in her with something about a friend who had recently died. And so she used that as the permission slip to tell everyone I was gay. But all of that to say that moment, like the leaving school when I was a child and learning how to survive within that environment, and then all the way up to the 10th grade when I was outed by my religion teacher, that moment was kind of like, oh, this is the thing that has been beaten over my head about as long as I can remember. And now everybody knows. So you got nothing on me, bitch. And so it just became my superpower. Like, yeah, okay, gay. What are you going to do about it? Find something else. And it really gave me a sense of self. And even though it was scary and it was very anxiety like riddled, I did find a way to like stand on my own 2 feet and stand up for myself in that period of time. That was the first time that I was able to stand up for myself, because that teacher did that to me. And it was a small school and we all knew everything about each other. I confronted her and was like, why did you do this? Also, wouldn't it be terrible if people found out that you were providing alcohol to your underage daughter at college? And I knew that for a fact because I was in the car with her when she did it. And so she started crying and apologizing. And all I said was like, you're not sorry. You're sorry you got caught.
Yes.
And I just was like, don't fuck with me. And I walked out of her office. And from that point on, I remember I went home and I plucked my eyebrows and I got my hair highlighted. And I was like, now, who's the faggot now?
You showed her what gay was then, didn't you?
I was Lance Bass all over back then. Yeah. But, even before he was out, I think. But people used to say that I was like him when I was much younger and not growing into my face yet. But like that moment, I think, was very pivotal because it was the first time I felt like I could do anything. And like that was like the paying off of the fighting to survive up until that point where there was like a release. And I was like, oh, you got nothing. I can do whatever I want. And then that was kind of reinstated by moving to New York and realizing like, nobody here cares. You can just do whatever you want. And that has carried on and been a theme in my life since that point. And so having been diagnosed with cancer, it just was like, okay, this is a bigger mountain that I've had to climb here. But it very much was like, okay, I don't care. I'm going to do whatever I want. And what I want is to misbehave and rage against this whole thing. And then also kick this thing's ass and get the hell out of here because this is in my way and a waste of my time.
Whenever I asked you about, like, you talked about how even 13, 14 years later, you're still thinking, oh, I have a cut on my leg or I have testicular cancer because I worked out too hard. You're talking about all these things. So do you think about death differently? And there's a reason why I'm asking this, because it doesn't sound like you grew up. Did you grow up you were talking about religious. So did you grow up in a religious home?
Yeah.
And so were you like going to church every Sunday and doing all that?
Sunday we were going to church. And then Tuesday, Thursday we were going to church because my mom played the piano and the organ in the church. And so Tuesday, Thursday nights were like choir rehearsal. And so me and my sisters would go and sit in the church. And it was just a very big part of our lives.
And how do you feel about religion today?
Oh, it's the worst. It is the origin story of every single thing that is wrong with the world and society.
Yes, I agree.
I don't care what your
100% there.
I don't care what your religion is. If you have one, it's the problem.
Yeah, I agree. But did it make you think differently? You know, because like the religion that I grew up in, you know, like the Southern Baptist religion, if you're good, you go to heaven. If you're bad, you go to hell. And you know, there's no reincarnation and there's no any of that and blah, blah, blah. And since doing this podcast, I have a completely different way of thinking about death. Like, I'm not scared. I don't want to die, and I'm scared of how I'm going to die. Like, you know, I don't want to die painfully and all that, but I'm not scared of dying. Like, because I think just the people that I've interviewed in the show in the past 2.5 years have really changed my way of thinking about what happens when you die. Did you go through that period at all? Just overthinking, like, what will happen when I die? Will I be put in a coffin and I might go to heaven and see God and Jesus or whatever? Or did you think like I die and I'm just laying in a box or I'm cremated and that's it? Or did you overthink religion or death at all?
Well, I think like yes and no. Yes, because I had to like figure out funeral shit pretty quick. You know, several months in, I was like, I should probably have like an end of life plan at 25 years old. Like, yikes. And so I did think about it in those terms. I think my view on death in the way that you're speaking of has very much evolved since then. And my attitude, being a staunch atheist, is that like we don't know what's going to happen after the fact. And so I'm going to make now count. And so then it goes back to the audacity component of like, I don't know what's going to happen when we die, but I know that it's going to happen. And we don't know when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen. But I'll be fucked if I leave this planet without satisfaction of how I lived and what I created while I was here. And back to normal, the documentary. There is a thing that I say that just kind of like came out, and it's the way we ended the documentary, but it was that moment that I was talking about where I was laying in the hospital bed with the parasite talking to my friend Jordan. And I just was like, I think if this is it, and this is all I've accomplished up until this point, that's not good enough. And so that was like yet another fight and survive moment where it was like, okay, when I get out of here, I'm going to do everything I can to have a life that if it ended today, I would be proud of it.
Good.
All that I've
That's amazing.
And it has like, that was a thought, and it took many years for me to kind of like put that in full motion. But I do feel like right now, this is as full throttle as I've been with that. And I'm very proud of everything I've done this year and last year and what I'm about to do in the next upcoming year. And I still don't want to die. I'm still not like, bring it on.
Yeah.
I do have a very dark sense of humor because of it.
Yeah.
But I definitely, I don't know if I view it different. Well, yeah, I guess I do view it differently. I think back then it was more like, I don't know what happens and I don't care. But now it's very much like, I don't know what happens and I don't care. But what I have right now, because this is my issue with a lot of religious people. They spend their entire lives thinking about the afterlife and what's going to happen in the afterlife. And they spend zero time thinking about the life that they have now and how it impacts the people around them. And that's how they become shitbag humans, because they're not worried about the now. They're worried about what happens when they're gone. And I'm not worried about what happens when I'm gone, because I have no control over that. So if there's a heaven, great. If there's a hell, oopsie, like, cool. I'm going to live my life the way that I want to live it. And I'm going to accomplish things that I'm proud of, that I can leave behind and have other people talk about, maybe for a generation if I'm lucky, and wrap it up and call it a day.
Yeah. Was there anything that you filmed that you that was too raw to actually go into the film, that landed on the cutting room floor?
I didn't edit this. That is not my skill set.
Okay. But was there anything that you remember like putting together that didn't make it because it was maybe too much or too raw or just didn't fit?
I mean, there are certainly things that we talked about that didn't fit. Honestly, I can't really think of any off the top of my head, because I'm so happy with how it turned out.
Good.
You know, like there are things that, I mean, like, again, this was like an hour and a half of me sitting and talking to a camera. So, and I was like blacked out for half of it, because I was like, what? I was just focusing so hard and trying to make it be right. Because I also obviously was producing it. But I think the big takeaway for me, having been interviewed and then also producing it with the other people who were interviewed, the big takeaway is that like we're all kind of in the same boat. And it's just a matter of how you approach the next piece of this, you know. And like I said, it took me many years to get to that point, and it took me even more years to get to the point that I'm at now, where I'm just like stepping on the gas with it. And everyone is different. And, you know, like there was someone that we had submit a video to us for the documentary who started a cosmetics company. And like there's another person who's like a public speaker, and there's another person who started you know, an organization for women with breast cancer. Like there's just so many things that you see with other survivors and what they've done with their experience, whether it's related to it or not. And then there are some that don't have that yet, because they haven't maybe gotten there. But there is, I think, a shared commonality, that's the same thing. There is a commonality between all of us, where it is, what do I do with this now?
Yeah.
And how can I create something that matters?
Yeah. Do you think that this film was therapeutic for you?
Yeah, in a lot of ways. I think it's always validating to hear other people echo the sentiments that you feel yourself about the experience you've had, regardless of how similar or not similar it is for other people. It's always nice to hear people say it, whether that be in the film itself or in the comment section of socials, or we just won Best Story with the Toronto and Los Angeles documentary short film festival, and they give you feedback from people who've watched the films, and the feedback that we got, like all three of them just like nailed it about what this was about and what mattered. And one of the women who commented on it was like, I have a very close friend who just survived cancer, and I'm now going to go talk to her about this, because this has like given me a new perspective of what people go through when they survive cancer. And like that's the best you could ask for. I don't give a shit about awards. Like hearing that is like, yes, this is the thing that like is the unspoken conversation about living through cancer. And we have created a thing I'm very proud of that has done that.
For anybody that survived cancer, or really any disease, I would say, that who's kind of pretending that they're back to normal, what would you say to them?
Stop it. Stop it and swing for the fences. Like one of my favorite exercises to do, or have done to me, is ask someone what they want and don't allow them time to think about it. So like set it up being like, I'm going to ask you, what do you want? And I don't want you to think about a single thing, and I just want you to answer. So like, what do you want? Boom. What do you want? Boom. What do you want? Boom. And like, I do that with myself sometimes. And it's really helped me like reverse engineer the life that I want of like, what do you want in the end? Okay, well, how do you get that? And then you work your way backwards. And thankfully, this film is a part of that. And, I think a lot of people who have been through cancer, but as you mentioned, any kind of major medical situation, because all trauma is very similar, need to ask themselves more frequently what they want, especially after the fact. Once the dust is settled and they kind of have their feet back off the ground a little bit, what do you want?
Yeah. Well, if people want to see this film, how do they see it?
Well, there is going to be a screening in the fall at New York City. As far as online, we're just going to have to keep our eyes on me in the future. Just because we're currently in the film festival circuit, and a lot of places like they don't like it if it's public for that to be whatever. So right now it is technically inaccessible, but keep your eyes peeled, and there will be ways.
That's amazing. Do you have are you on a social media channel that people can kind of keep up to what you're doing?
I am on all the social media channels.
Okay. I will get you to send those to me, and I will put them in the description of this video or podcast so people can follow you and they can find out more whenever it's going to be more widely released. So
yes,
I do hope that I would really recommend you doing this, that you take a moment maybe tonight after this podcast and before you go to bed and just kind of maybe reflect back on what you're doing. Because I think it's pretty amazing that you put together a film like this and the honesty that's there, and just, I think you're going to help a lot of people with this film. And I hope that you do reflect on that and you take that in, because we need more stuff like this in the world happening. So I hope you do that.
Well, thank you. I will say too, I feel like I forgot about mentioning this in alignment with like talking about what things people have done with their lives after cancer. I also started a film festival. It's the only film festival of its kind. It's called the Remission Film Festival. It's the only film festival that focuses on creators who've been impacted by cancer. And this past April, we premiered it in New York City. Great turnout. We had 14 films, about 35 submissions from across the globe, from people who have made films either about cancer or who have had cancer and made a film that kind of points to it a little bit. Some of them were a little bit more on the nose than others. We had some really incredible documentaries. And it was also a fundraiser for Blood Cancer United. So we raised money through ticket sales and other donations at the film festival that we donated to Blood Cancer United and cancer research. We're going to be continuing doing this film festival every year as a fundraiser.
That's amazing.
In New York City, we'll be live streaming it as well, so people can watch it at home. Like that's yet another piece of the puzzle that is me.
And we should also talk about, you wrote a book.
I did write a book.
Cancer, musical theater, and other chronic illnesses. So the title alone is a good vibe. So tell me a little bit about that.
Thank you. So the book kind of encapsulates both diagnosis and survivorship. The survivorship portion of the book is a little shorter because I wrote it at a time when my survivorship was a little bit shorter.
Yeah.
And I had much more to say about now than I did back then. But it basically was just like, I met someone who echoed sentiments that I had been feeling at the time, which we've talked about how they feel displaced in their life and they can't stand being around everyone because it just feels so like different and icky. And I was like, same. And we cannot be the only two people. So I started asking other people I knew who had cancer, who were younger. And I was like, I'm writing a book about this because this is, why is literally no one at the time talking about this? The conversation has gotten better on social media with people in survivorship and following people who talk about this more regularly. Mm-hmm. But 14 years ago, crickets. And so I wrote this book in hopes of having the conversation of what my diagnosis was like, what my experience in a broken medical system was like, and then coming out on the other side and what that was like. And we do it all on the backdrop of musical theater.
Wow, that's amazing.
Thanks.
You were an amazing guest. I'm so glad I got to talk with you. Like really, like, I mean, we've been talking for an hour and 7 minutes, and I know when it's a good podcast. I tell my editor this every time. Whenever I forget the time, and I literally forgot we were on a podcast at one point. I forgot I thought we were just talking. And I think it's because, one, I think we would definitely be friends if we didn't meet through this way. And then we live in the same city. I think we'd be hanging out probably tonight, getting a drink. And two, I think what you're doing is really amazing. And I'm proud of you for doing this. And I think I love it that you're a gay, queer, whatever you want to call yourself, person that's gone out and you're just being so honest about what's happening and as a cancer survivor. So I think it's really great. So I appreciate you so much for being on my show.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It really is, I don't know, if Audacity had a name, it might be Edward Miskie. Who knows?
Yes, I agree. Well, thank you so much for being on. Again, I will put Edward's, all of his social media in the description of this podcast or video. Follow him whenever this comes out. And I'll put a link to his book too. Is your book on Amazon?
It is, yeah. And Barnes & Noble and, anywhere you buy books.
I'll put a link to his book. So if you want to get his book, and then we'll keep up with Edward whenever the film is out more widely distributed. We'll make sure that people know about that. And then we'll also put about the film festival that you're doing as well, because that's amazing. It's going to continue to grow. You got 35 this year. Think of what you're going to get next year.
Yeah, I was expecting none. And it just was like every week we'd get one or two. And it was like, it's happening.
Yeah, we could have a whole conversation on that, because I have a million questions about what got submitted as well. Because again, I worked in the pharmaceutical world and in oncology for years, and doing patient films and advocacy films and stuff.
We have much to talk about.
Yes, so I think I could have you back on a couple of times. So
happy to come back.
It was really great meeting you, and I'm so glad. So thanks for being on. If this episode resonated with you or somebody you know, please share it with them, because it's a subject that a lot of people avoid or don't talk about in a real way that Edward is doing. So I really appreciate it. So thanks for being on.
Thank you for having me.